Hey fantasy fans, this is Dan here with TreeBeard Book Reviews, and this video is going to be my spoiler-filled review of Dune. Let's get into it. Okay guys, as I mentioned, this is going to be my spoiler-filled just talk on Dune. If you want to really get into like my review of Dune and like my spoiler-free, please watch that video here. They came out on the same day, so this is more just me to talk about the things I couldn't really talk about in that video and stuff I want to discuss about Dune. So again, if you like this content and you like the videos I'm producing, please comment below and please like and subscribe. All right, so Dune. Let's get into some spoilers here. So I just want to preface this, like I kind of wrote all this stuff down as I was reading the book, and then also after I finished the book, and there's things I really wanted to discuss. So these are all gonna kind of be a little bit random order. So yeah, like bear with me here. Like these are just things I needed to get out and get off my chest and just talk about the book. So the first thing I really want to talk about is like Dr. Yui and like his betrayal. It's really telegraphed in the book that like the betrayal is going to happen, that Yui's going to betray the Atreides family to the Harkonnens. It's always like, oh, Yui the betrayer and stuff like that. That's just how I'll be remembered, as Yui the betrayer, the downfall of the Atreides. And like he doesn't want to do it. But like I still felt the betrayal was such a weak betrayal. And like it didn't need to happen because Yui, like, he's betraying the Atreides, and I guess that's another thing to say, like, Yui's this trained physician from the Empire, so his training is supposed to be infallible, and clearly the Harkonnens got around it, and they captured his wife, who was a Bene Gesserit, and the thing is, he knows that like his wife is dead, like, and like he just wants some closure, but it was such a weak thing, but the thing with Yui, like his betrayal was also kind of a way for him, like, yeah, I'm going to betray the Atreides, but Paul will survive eventually, and the Harkonnens will be dead, because he set it up with Leto that he was going, like, when he captured Leto, he implanted a false tooth that was full of poison that would kill the Harkonnens. When it was time for Duke Leto to, die and be killed or interrogated by the Harkonnens, Yui would get his revenge on the Harkonnens for killing his wife, and he also provided Paul and Jessica like with the means to their escape and like their means for their survival later on in the book. So like I still thought the betrayal was a little weak. It didn't need to happen, but without this betrayal happening, like the story wouldn't be the story it is. So yeah, like I said, it was a little weak, but I mean it needed to happen. Like it had to happen. So I guess then moving from the betrayal is like the political intrigue and like the house war that's going on. So like there's definitely like this maybe is overdone, oversaid, but like there is 3D chess going on here like the whole time in these books. This book where the Atreides know they're walking into a trap, and like the Harkonnens are setting up the trap, and like with the Emperor, he's sending Leto to take over Arrakis, because he's like, I don't like your popularity. Your popularity is scaring. It's a threat. It's scary. It's a threat to me. So I'm going to be seen as benevolent by giving you this massively wealthy planet of Arrakis that has all the spice in our galaxy. But I'm gonna help the Harkonnens get rid of you. So the Harkonnens already want the Atreides gone. So, and they've amassed this wealth over the last 60 or whatever 80 years. I think they've been controlling Arrakis, and like literally they spend the 60 and 80 years worth of wealth just to eliminate this family. So it's so good. Like the Atreides knew they were walking into a trap. They just didn't know the extent of the trap. And Leto, like he trusted every one of his advisors, and he just didn't. And like Yui was never in contestation because he never thought his training could have been broken. So it was really well done, and like you're in the mind of the Atreides, who think that like we know this is a trap. We're preparing for all these pitfalls and like where these dangers could come from, but not really realizing the danger was within the whole time. And just the Harkonnens, where you have like you're seeing these slimy, manipulative characters who are like gross, like Baron Harkonnens is like disgustingly fat person who has to have like suspenders carry his weight because he can't carry it anymore, and he's into like raping boys, and so he's just a terrible, disgusting person. But he's like, you're in his mind, and you're knowing like the plans he's setting up, and this betrayal, like this attack on the House Atreides, and it's so well done, like it's so masterful. And like I said, then Paul and Jessica escape. Like they managed to get out by the help of Duncan Idaho, and that really kind of segues into the next thing I want to talk about with Duncan and like Duncan's death. And that was really shocking to me. Like I loved Duncan Idaho in the book. Like he's like the go between like the Fremen and Leto's troop, and showing you like the trust that's being built there between the Fremen and the Atreides, and how and like the distrust there that's between the Fremen and like the House Harkonnen. Like they hate the Harkonnens. And so like Duncan's death was like a shock to me, and I was like, oh, that sucks. Because then I've looked at the cast for like the movie, and I'm like, oh no, like Jason Momoa is Duncan Idaho, so that means Jason Momoa is gonna die. That sucks for him, and like sucks for everyone else. But maybe that's what needs to happen, because he's like, it's such an emotional part in the book where Jessica and like Paul get away in this ornithopter. Like they managed to like beat they overpower the Harkonnens, who are going to literally execute them or let a sandworm just eat them. And then like Duncan Idaho shows up, and he's like, okay, I'm going to take you to Liet Kynes, who is like the leader of the Fremen, and we'll go join with the Fremen. And but like the Harkonnen are kind of onto it, and like they send the Sauerkraut to kill like Paul. And it's so well done. Like it's so like you really feel the impact of his death, like because he is this go between the Fremen and like the House Atreides. And there's also this little suspicion put in your mind, is like Duncan like the betrayer? But like, you as a reader, but like the characters don't know, right? Like Jessica and Paul. And his sacrifice was like, it was so beautiful, but it's also so sad too. Without it, like Paul and Jessica wouldn't have survived. And so I love Duncan Idaho, and it was sad to see him go. But I was always thinking through the book, I'm like, when's Duncan coming back? I don't think he died. We don't see him die, so maybe he's not dead, but I'm pretty sure he's dead. So so moving on, I guess, and so that really leads into like Jessica and Paul's trek through the desert, and like I said, that wouldn't have been successful without the help from Yui providing the still suits and the still tent. And like Paul's really starting to like, because like the thing is, like Jessica like had Paul because she wanted to have the Kiswach Haderach, right? Where like the Kiswach Haderach was like this breeding program done by the Bene Gesserit to like create a male Reverend Mother, like Mentat, like this super like who has like physical memory, like memories of like the past, of like all male and female, and like can see into the future. And so she thought Paul would be like the Kiswach Haderach, and which it turns out he is, like this prophecy that is fulfilled with him. And where they're doing their trek through the desert, like the dunes of Arrakis. And Paul starts, he's obviously ingesting a lot more spice. He really comes to this realization that like, I'm apart from like my mom and like these other people. Like I can see into the future, and like the future is not great. Like this path we're on, the path I'm going to be on, is going to lead to war, more bloodshed, and like a jihad in a sense, like a holy war, because Paul was really seen as like this prophetic. He becomes a prophet, really. So Paul's trek through the desert leads him to encountering like the Fremen, like where he meets like Stilgar and his crew. And holy cow, was that really good. Like where him and Jessica's trek through the desert proved to the Fremen that they're not like complete waste of space, and that we shouldn't just kill them and take their moisture, right? So that was just so well done. And I really liked this like Stilgar as a character. You get introduced to Stilgar a little earlier, where he he's like the ambassador almost, where he's meeting with Duncan, and he's sharing with the Atreides and beginning to trust the House Atreides a little bit. So I really enjoyed like his character and his growth with Paul throughout the book, and like Paul's growth being, part of the Fremen culture and becoming a Fremen. And like and then it's really like Stilgar's acceptance of Paul into this Fremen culture, and where he takes on like the mantle of Muad'dib. Um, so, oh yeah, so I guess that really plays into like Jamis. So Jamis was this like Fremen who Paul bested when they first discovered like Jessica and like Paul in the desert. And so Jamis was like kind of like a hothead. Like you kind of have to have that one character who's like a hothead who's like, I cannot be bested, so I'm gonna get my honor back by fighting Paul. And so Paul accepts the challenge. He has no choice but to accept the challenge, and he has to eventually kill Jamis. But the Fremen think that like, oh, like Paul's like toying with him, and he's really rude, like because the way like the combat Paul's been taught, like there's shields that you're when you're fighting, you have to manipulate and fight around these shields, and eventually you break the shield and you can score a kill or a hit. But when they're in the middle of the desert, they can't have the shields because then it'll summon a sandworm and you all get eaten and stuff like that. So Paul's kind of holding back because of his training, and this is like a true fight, and Paul ends up killing Jamis and really kind of cementing, like earning the respect of the other Fremen, and kind of really taking Jamis's spot in among the Fremen. And yeah, it's really well done. Like like I said, it's like, kind of like a Dancing with Wolves, like where he starts taking on the culture and learning of the Fremen culture and becomes a Fremen himself. So yeah, it was so well done, like Paul, and then like that turns to him becoming Muad'Dib, like it means like desert mouse or something like that. But and like just Paul's character and growth, like in this stage, like with the Fremen, like it was so fascinating because like the first book is, like I said, it's all about, like in my spoiler free review, it's broken up into 3 books, like around, it's called like Dune, Muad'Dib, and then the Prophet. So like the first book, Dune, is really the setup of like the Atreides family and Leto, and then Muad'Dib and the Prophet are really about Paul and Paul's growth and Paul fulfilling that prophecy of becoming like the Kiswach Haderach, or yeah. So it's just I loved it. I loved Paul's story in there, like just his growth with them, and him learning to become a Fremen, and him like learning to ride the sandworms, and like how important the sandworms are to like the Dunes society and like the planet. Like you wouldn't have spice without the Dune, like the sandworms, and like how the Fremen refer to them as makers, and they don't see them as their enemies. They see them as like a natural part of this environment that have to be there to survive. Like it's like it's like co-opetition in nature, or like a symbiotic relationship. And like the Fremen ride the worms, like to get about Arrakis, and yeah, it's just really good. And then so Paul is like, in the beginning of the book, Paul starts having visions of this girl he sees on Arrakis, this woman, and he knows her. Like he's already, his prescient ability, like his ability to see into the future, is manifesting early on in his life. And then eventually, when he gets to Dune and he meets up with the Fremen, he meets Chani, who is actually the daughter of Liet Kynes, and so she is like becomes his like wife in a sense. So she's like his wife among the Fremen, and they eventually have like a son together, and like they have a really nice, like really beautiful relationship, like very similar to like Leto and like Jessica, like this just loving relationship. It's not like a marriage per se, but like, 'cause, like the Fremen really, I guess they don't have like a marriage culture, but yeah, it's really like it's so excellent. Like I just loved their relationship, and like they eventually have a son together who they name Leto the Second, which I guess I'll talk about this. Like it's almost like in Game of Thrones, where where Robb Stark names his unborn son, or going to name his son Ned Stark the Second, and you're just like, oh no, dude, like how many Ned Starks do you have to kill? So when like Chani and like Chani and Paul have their son, and they name him Leto the Second, and it's almost like foreshadowing that like their son eventually does get killed near the end of the book, and it's so heartbreaking. I think it was more heartbreaking for myself because I have 2 young kids too, and just to think of like your child being killed was just awful. So yeah, so it again, like Paul's growth, like Paul's like training at the Fremen, and is like him just becoming a leader and becoming this prophetic character. And like I really like the time jump that happens in the like after Muad'Dib, like the book Muad'Dib, where it's the book Prophet, like it's 2 years, like 2 years on, and the Harkonnens thought they've won, but like the Fremen, like they didn't really realize how like populous the Fremen were, and like they're now being led by this fanatic prophet called Muad'Dib, and they're gonna start sending troops back to like clean it all up and take it back over, but they're in for a surprise, and like that's where Paul kind of brings his big plan out and brings the Fremen out of hiding, and enacts his plan to take revenge and take Dune back in the name of House Atreides. So like one of the things I discussed, that like some things I didn't like was like the ending. Like the ending felt really rushed, and this is something I really wanted to discuss, was the ending in the book, where it felt really rushed, and like what annoyed me a lot was like some of the characters were killed off screen. Like the death of like Beast Raban, like the Baron Harkonnen's uncle or nephew, like his just brutish nephew. And I think that character's gonna be played by Dave Bautista in the movie. But just having him killed off screen like really sucked. And like why? Like what? Like I just felt like he ran out of pages in a sense, that he just needed to kill. He killed, the Baron off screen. He killed Beast Raban off screen. Like Thufir, and like it felt so rushed. Like it just you have all this beautiful world building, and like you're in the head of all these characters, and then they kind of get killed off screen. Was I don't know, like I just didn't love it. That I really didn't like that in the end, and like the murder of, like I said, the murder of like Paul and Johnny's son. Like I felt like that was unnecessary, because like Paul in the end of the book is like he's kind of really alien almost, where he's seen like the future to a point, like he's accepted his role as like the Kiswach Haderach or the Lisan al Gaib, and as like this prophecy come true, and that like his empire is going to start with like his rule of Dune, and yeah, it's just like I don't know why they needed to kill him off, like the son off. So, and then like Paul has his fight with Fade Rautha, like who was going to be the Na Baron or successor to Vladimir Harkonnen, and yeah, it was just like rushed. I don't know. I just felt really like rushed through the end, and um, but like there is like still this message at the end, right, with Jessica, where Paul's like, I'm gonna pretty much be emperor and everything but name. Like the emperor is on Dune, and he's like helping the Harkonnens like take Dune back and secure the spice. And he gets trapped by Paul, and the emperor and his wife, like his daughter, are there, and Paul's like, I'm gonna marry your daughter, and I'm gonna be emperor and everything but name, but I'm not gonna consummate my marriage with your daughter. She's gonna be a wife and anything but name, and my wife here, Chani, like who was essentially a concubine now, will be my wife and will be my advisor and like the love of my life. So it's like that foil between like Leto and like Jessica, and like Leto never married because it was like a power play against all the other houses, that he was like available still to be married, and that there's a chance. So yeah, I mean, like if I wanted to discuss like the whole book, there's definitely things I'm missing. So I think we're gonna really kind of get up into like wrapping it up, like just this do a little bit of a closure on Dune. And okay, so thank you so much. Here, we'll keep going. Okay guys, so that's really like my spoiler talk of Dune. Like this video could have been an hour long, really. I know there's so many things I missed, like with political, like more of the political stuff going on, and like even when you're in the POVs of like the Harkonnens and on the Harkonnen planet. Like there's so much to talk about, and like maybe this is something we can have a discussion in the comments below about. And like really I just have to say, like I love this book. Like if you watched my spoiler free review, like I rated this book a 4.7 out of 5. Like I really love this book. There were some things, like a little things I didn't like, like just I felt the ending was a little rushed, and like the the betrayal was a little silly in my mind. But other than that, like beautiful book, like just such an enjoyable read, and I really cannot wait for the movie to come out this October. So, and again, if you're watching this after the movie came out and you know, you want to discuss Dune, like, you know, this has really kind of convinced me to read the other books of the Dune. Like, I know it was originally intended as a trilogy, but it was like 5 books, and maybe that's kind of what inspired like Douglas Adams with his trilogy in 5 parts. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being dumb here, but again, like, so this is like my spoiler-filled review of Dune. Again, these are just stuff I wanted to talk about, and you know, I really one thing I didn't even talk about that is Gurney Halleck. Oh, I talked about him in my spoiler-free review. I've gushed about Gurney. So yeah, so that is my review of Dune. Just I want to say thank you so much again if you've stuck through this video and you actually ended up watching both my videos, the spoiler and the spoiler-free review. And as always, like if you like this content, please like, comment, and subscribe. And we'll see you next time. Thank you.